Council, Chair, thank you very much for having this venue. I've lived in Lahaina since I moved here to Hawaii 42 years ago, and I've run a small business and employed employees. All three of my field employees have lost their homes. Thing that I want to bring up, and it's interesting, I can't remember the exact words, but this is like the Transparency Committee is in the front line of it. And yesterday we were having an informal meeting together, a few friends of mine and I, and a very angry man came up. And, I love hearing conspiracy theories because I can usually debunk them. And he was super concerned. He literally interrupted a half dozen people who were having an intimate meeting to rant about the fact that his rumor is that the right before the fire, the sunshine laws were waived before the fire. And then he was rating about where the tiny homes are being put out in Kapalua on West Maui or Maui land and Pine land so that they can get their zoning changed. And that the same thing in Olowalu, these cherry places that the zoning has protected from development are being surreptitiously allowed to happen because of this fire. And even the appearance of that, we've watched the Gentleman Farms take out haiku. We've watched Laniapoko be built where nobody farms, right? We've watched this happen to our community while I've lived here. And the fear that that's happening again under the guise of this fire is large in our community. And I don't have a solution to this except that for the council to make it a point to make sure you're combating that misinformation, if it's misinformation, and if it's not misinformation, to make sure you're really careful. Another previous testifier talked about the anger in the community, and this man was angry, like scary angry. And, I try not to do that anymore. I've grown up, and I try to be a gentleman. So about that, and then the other, secret zoning changes, couple of tiny homes, Olowalu. And is there a change? Can anybody answer me? Has there been a change in zoning for those projects? I see them doing something, and it's not clear from the name who's doing it. Looks like tiny homes going in Olowalu. I know Jem is trying hard to do things, but there's no clarity about what people are doing, at least not that we can see. And then the other one is to consider some prefab housing. I love the idea of having a pre-approved zoning plan for people. I really think because, up now it can take a couple of 3 years to get a zoning thing through and to have something where you could have a plan that, okay, this goes in and people could, you could have people bidding on a similar plan and hopefully get scaled improvements to build it back fast. And the other one is where I live, across my next door neighbor is a building, the only one I know of that's zoned, and they call it a dormitory zoning. It was built a while back, but it has, and I've never heard of this anywhere else in the world, but the person who was managing it told me they were permitted that way. And they have like 6 or 7 nice, a communal kitchen in one section, but separate kitchens for others. So they're able to house a relatively large number of people comfortably on a small footprint. It's almost like miniature apartment building. And I'm wondering if the council could look into making sure that people know about that for some of the rebuilding in Lahaina. It would be a perfect fit. It might have 2 or 3 small kitchens in a house. And I want to thank the council again that's my time.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Member Paulton has a clarifying question for you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Brown. I've also heard of the Maui land and pine property. I think it's 40 acres above the community garden. Is that the parcel that you were referring to in Kapalua?
I was told the person who was ranting was saying it was even further north than that, but I'm not sure. He had no clarity, but it was just, that was the first rumor I heard of that they were putting them that far north. And it was concerning because there's no access for them. They're isolated from the community. That's not as bad if it's right there above the community garden. They have at least access to the Pili Market, and they're a little closer. So that's a little bit better. But my concern would be the long-term zoning. What implications for that?
And to clarify, they say that it may take up to a year for phase 1 and phase 2, and then, all the logistics of how we know that Paradise, which was on fire 5 years ago, is just getting back to rebuilding now. Mm-hmm. Would you be comfortable if that was like certain areas were designated as a 10-year conditional permit or something like that to allow temporary housing. Right now, I think under the state law and possibly the county, zoning is suspended, but it's not clear once the emergency proclamation suspending zoning is over, then what happens to whatever gets built there. So I just was wondering if like certain areas were designated as for these temporary structures, and possibly if they're modular they could be moved back onto the person's property once if that's kind of what you were more in favor
that was my
along those lines.
Absolutely. And again, my concern is that we wind up with something like a Pineapple Hill up there, right? You put the people there temporarily, 3 years later, they get rousted out, and all of a sudden it's still zoned residential. I can lot it out and I can turn it into another bunch of millionaires' houses. And, the real problem I've watched on this side of the island is no significant new housing that's truly affordable has been built. You have the little tiny project at the entrance to Lahaina was built by Weinberg. And after Hanakalai, Kauhali was built, there's been nothing else built on this side of the island of significant numbers in 40 years. And that's as much of a problem as the Airbnbs, right? There's been nothing built. And we really have to have a focus on building new affordable housing, whether it's apartments or smaller homes. But something's got to be done. It's in my backyard. I'm suffering from the dust every day from them. And I got on the council and testified in their favor. I'm really angry at Alpha Construction right now, but it has to be done. Even though it's in my backyard, literally, I lobbied for it because housing has to be a priority.
So, like, to clarify, Pukoli Village, Mauka of Ka'anapali Hotels, there's 249 acres in our community plan that's set for at least half affordable housing. Are you saying those things that are already in the community plan, that are already dedicated to affordable housing, those are the things that we should really push forward at this time?
Right, red and zoning, someplace new that we don't know. We have no long-term plan for it. It's outside of zoning. We've had that plan up above the sewer plant, up between that and Kanapali Hillside. That area has already been zoned and nothing's been done. If I live in Kanapali 2000, I don't understand why we didn't put those temporary housing there instead of opening up something brand new and opening up Pandora's box. We have areas that are zoned. Move it forward. Find a way to keep permitting not to take so long and not to disparage they're trying to follow all the rules that are in place, and it takes that long to follow the rules. I understand the planning commission has to do their job with the department, but we need to really look at what's taking that long to do it and get things moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And again, like my wife, I'm completely willing to be on a task force or a committee with my experience in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Members, any more clarifying questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for your time.